Hey guys, my name's Sam and welcome to Prep Medic. A number of years ago, I did a video on my patrol rifle setup, and I think it's time we update that video. So like I just said, a number of years ago, I did a video on my patrol rifle. Now, I was a brand new reserve deputy out in Iowa at that point when I released that video. I had also just gotten onto their SWAT team as an entry team member and a tactical medic. So I basically went into the store, bought a stripped down Colt LE 6920 and put whatever furniture I felt was good on it and used that as my entry team rifle for a number of years. Now, fast forward 4 or 5 years, I have a little bit more experience with rifles. I've taken a number of different CQB classes, really tested out what I have, and I had the opportunity to build a new rifle. Now, this is not my patrol rifle. I am unarmed right now. I am still a SWAT medic, but we are a unsworn unit, which means we don't carry guns, which is what it is. So this is more of a hobby gun, home defense, etc. But I really built it out to be what I wish I had had back then. Full disclosure, guys, I did get a store credit to build this rifle to my own specifications from Primary Arms. And I do have an affiliate link to Primary Arms. I will list below if I'm allowed. If not, I'll throw it somewhere where you can find it. Now, Primary Arms is a distributor for pretty much any brand of firearm or firearm accessory on the market, and I built this, like I said, to my own specifications. So while I do have one Primary Arms product on here, I was under no obligation to include anything on this rifle that I did not like. So take that for what it's worth. The other thing I'm going to say is I am not a hardcore gun guy. I like shooting guns. I carry a firearm on me daily. I have used firearms in a professional setting and as a hobby, but there's a lot of nuances that people that get super into firearms have that I simply do not. I'm probably gonna tell you something wrong in this video. I'm probably gonna have something on here that you absolutely hate. And honestly, I'd love to hear it. Leave them in the comments down below, and yeah, let's get into the video. The rifle I have in front of you is chambered in 5.56. I went with 5.56 because it is a caliber that I am familiar with. I have ammo at home. I can shoot through this, and by today's standards, it is not incredibly expensive. That being said, it was still a little bit of sticker shock when I went to Walmart and ended up spending about $300 for one range day. But that's why I went with this caliber. I'm sure there are a bunch of nuances to that, but I don't have the money to be spending on some of these specialty calibers that might be a little bit better with a shorter barrel. For barrel length, I went with an 11.5 inch barrel. This is an SBR. And I did that because I wanted the ability and the ballistics to reach out and touch stuff. I've gone to the flat range and was able to hit consistently at 200, 300 yards on a silhouette steel target, but still be short enough to act as a good CQB gun for classes I might take in the future or home defense. I want it to be a little bit of a do-it-all firearm. So that's why I made those decisions in terms of specifications. So as far as a lower and an upper, I went with the Aero Precision M4E1. I like them because they're not super crazy expensive. They work well, they look nice, and honestly, I haven't had a single issue with them. A couple things I like about the lower, I do like that this is a little bit of a flanged magwell because honestly, I suck at rifle reloads, and this helps me just a little bit. And then I think it just looks clean with the FDEs. So a lot of this was looks and kind of finding the middle ground in price and functionality. As far as a barrel, I went with a Roscoe Bloodline barrel. Once again, kind of hits that middle ground between something that's going to be consistent, but isn't going to break the bank completely. As far as a stock, this is a Magpul stock. I don't even know which one it is, but I did get the one that clamps down. I just like that. It gives it a little bit of a sturdier feel than some of the stock ones. And this does have storage for batteries. I'm not a huge believer in like using your rifle for a ton of storage, at least for my uses. All that does is it makes your gun heavy and unwieldy where I'm in environments that don't really require it. It's not like I'm going out to the field for 3 weeks and need to be changing my night vision batteries a bunch. So for me, I don't use the storage, but it is there. This also gives a decent cheek weld. However, it doesn't really freaking matter because I went with a Unity riser for this guy, which basically makes it hard to give a good cheek weld. I end up putting my chin on it a little bit if I do want a little bit more of a stable shooting position. Now, I do have a folding stock adapter. I've always kind of wanted one of these because I can throw it into a backpack and use that as a range bag if I really wanted. It gives it some concealability, but the 11.5 barrel, what I found is it's just a little bit long to really like have a backpack gun. This does not fit in a standard Vertex Gamut backpack, which is what I use. You have to use like an Overland or one of their other larger packs to actually make this fit. Even so, this does break it down a little bit more. No, I did not get the new one because I've heard there's some reliability issues, so this one cannot be fired while it's open. You can take one shot, but it's gonna wreck some of your internals. So far, I like it. It does add a little bit of weight, but for me, it's totally worth it. Now, a sling on here, I have Flatline Fiberco, I believe. They make the drop pouch that I use on my battle belt now. Just a solid company. And what I like about this is that it has an easy pull strap that you can extend the sling really quickly. So if you're two-pointing the sling and it's really close to your body, you're just storing it, you can really quickly pull that tab down and give you enough leverage to bring the gun up relatively easily. And that is attached by QD mounts. I have it on this rifle in a couple different places. That's what's really nice about Magpul furniture is it almost all comes with that. So I have the one QD mount here. And then instead of slinging it all the way to the end, even though I have the capability of doing that, I've been slinging it halfway up. I just find it doesn't get in the way of my hand all that much. And it's a little bit easier to bring the rifle up, especially doing drills on the range, which is what I'm doing. This is not a professional rifle. All right, so for a handle, I went with the Magpul pistol grip. It's just a nice feeling angle, and once again, this has some storage under it. Not something I'm using. I think I've got a couple Allen wrenches in here for different aspects of the gun in case something comes loose, but nothing that actually has weight. For the trigger, I went with the TriggerTech AR-15 single stage adaptable trigger, flat black, and I kind of splurged on this guy. This is an expensive trigger. It feels amazing to shoot. It is very adjustable, and I do not have this thing dialed in for what I need quite yet. Simply put, the one issue I've had with it is I will pull the trigger on the range and I don't feel the reset quite as well. It doesn't travel that far. So I won't be sure if it resets. I'll try to pull it again and realize I never let the trigger reset there. I know that is user error, that is a training error. That is something I need to dial in, but that is an issue I have experienced with the trigger itself. Now for a handguard, I have a Geisley handguard. It's one of their top end ones. It's got the friction clamp here, and that has 2 tabs up here that keep it aligned and 2 tabs down here that kind of tighten it to the upper. And this thing works great. It is not going anywhere. Everything else on it seems really sturdy, and I've had no issues mounting. That's one thing I changed up with this rifle compared to my patrol one. I had key mod. Now, in my experience, key mods worked great, to be completely honest. I know somebody will rake me on the internet for that, but I've never had anything loosen up. That being said, everybody swears by M-LOK, so I went with an M-LOK handguard to attach the most amount of accessories that I could, not have to shop around for them. So that's what I got here, and that has QD mounts for your sling if you want to mount it in a couple different places. I did put another QD mount on the front if I want to do a full length rifle sling. I have the Surefire Scout Mini Pro, I believe, and the reason I went with this is because this is one of the only lights that is both white light as well as IR, and that has an off switch as well, so you can kind of keep it in between if you're storing it. I did set this up to be compatible with my night vision. I do have a single tube PVS 14. I'm not rocking anything crazy, and I bought that myself. So I wanted this to be able to work with that if I want to go night shoot. I'll be completely honest, I haven't done that yet, so I haven't had the opportunity to fully test this rifle out for one of its capabilities I bought it for. And then up here, I have the HoloSun IR laser and illuminator. What I've read and what I've experienced is that IR illuminators are pretty weak on these dual units. That's why I went with a light that has a better IR illuminator. Now, the lasers also are technically weaker than the military approved or law enforcement ones, whatever some regulating agency decides is legal for the civilian population. But the laser for me works pretty well, and I've read that they work pretty well and are pretty bright. When I've been playing with it, LARPing at home, I've been able to see the laser just fine under night vision goggles. But once again, that illuminator is not super great, which is why I paired it with this light. This also has a visible laser, so it's got a green laser if I do want to use it. Just, for visible shooting, I can do that. And then I have the Surefire dual pads set up here. So one controls the light and then one controls the laser, and it works very well. The only thing I don't like about it is it takes up a ton of real estate. I think there are some buttons by Unity Tactical that you can hit one and the other, and they're like stacked. So it would take up a little bit less real estate. Because I went with a little bit of a longer barrel, honestly, I think this one works relatively well. For a flash hider, I don't even know which one this is, but I believe it's a chemo mount, and I am getting a suppressor, but that process takes time. So that is one thing I want with this, because this thing does shoot a fireball periodically out of the front and is relatively annoying to shoot inside just because of the shorter barrel length. The handguard I went with the Strike Industries handguard, and these guys get wrecked on social media for a lot of their stuff, but this thing's awesome. Everybody buys the Bravo Company manufacturing little front handguard, and then they cut it because it's too long. This guy's already cut. It has wire management on the side, which I am not using, but it works really well, really stable, and I've got no issues with it. So for the optic and the riser, for the optic, I went with the SLX MD25 primary arms, CQB ACSS reticle. Essentially what that means is that this is a red dot sight with an ACSS reticle, which means it has a red ring around it, which is great for CQB work because it's easy, really kind of ish target acquisition when you come around the corner and somebody's there. But it also has a little chevron in front that gives you more precise aiming, and then it technically has little dots under it, which mean different things for different yardages, and this one is calibrated to 5.56, but to be completely honest, without a magnifier on here, it's completely useless to me. I wasn't able to see anything when I was looking pretty far downrange. So I really like this because of its CQB abilities. And these optics are relatively cheap. It's like $200, but it works really well. I've shot about 1,000 rounds through here. This optic has been on for now 3 months without a battery issue. I'm going to replace it at about 4 or 5 months, even though it says it can go longer. My only real issue with the optic itself is this turn knob on the side is really big. So it's not a huge deal, but it kind of obstructs part of your vision. And really with these sights, you want to have the sight disappear when you're looking through it, only see the reticle, and then have a little bit more situational awareness. So that would be my only gripe about this optic so far. Like I said, I've looked through night vision goggles on this for its night vision settings, but I haven't really shot with it, so I'm not in a position to give you a really good review of its night vision capabilities. It does have 2 night vision settings, however. Now, I mounted this on a Unity Tactical riser because this thing is absolutely huge. It brings the optic up. For one, once again, I've read, I'm not super versed in CQB. There's so many special operators on here. I'm a dude that got training about 6 years ago that's taken a couple classes. I'm not like the CQB master or anything like that, so don't get it twisted. But what I've read is that this gives you a little bit more situational awareness when you're going around the house. It's not quite as far up to your eye, and you don't have to really come down onto your gun. It can kind of come up to your eye. So I did that, and it's also great for passive aiming. Now, the chances that I'm going against somebody force on force that has night vision capabilities where I can't use an IR laser are like 0 unless China invades the mainland. But once again, it's a capability I have and I like having it. So there is that. Now, the other reason I went with the Unity Tactical Riser was because you can actually sight down it. So this guy here has a sight aperture, I think it's called. It's got the little back sight underneath it, and then that goes all the way out. You can put a little front sight post in there. I opted not to do that and throw a Magpul Pro MBUS sight up here. Now this technically folds down, but I don't have room to do it. That gives you a little bit more of a sight radius. And just in case my laser fails, my optic fails, I have iron sights as a backup. This is kind of an old habit from the sheriff's office. We were told we always had to have them, but I never want to lose aiming because of an electrical malfunction. Not that I think that's going to happen here. Finally, I've got a Radian Raptor charging handle. It's ambidextrous, so both sides will release it, and it is vented as well. So when I do get a suppressor with this, it's not just blowing gas right into my face. I'm sure by now a bunch of people have called me out for shooting steel without iPro. All I can say is, yeah, I forgot them at home, and it was like a 2-hour drive to go back and get them. So I risked it for the biscuit, and it all worked out, and we got some cool footage from it. So that's all I have to say about that. One thing I didn't talk about earlier is I did go with Fail Zero internals, and that's because it was recommended to me by Sean from We Like Shooting as like a good middle ground bolt carrier group that's going to do everything I need it to do. I've had no malfunctions that were not my fault with this gun. I had one improperly seated magazine where I did get a double feed, and that was a little bit annoying, but once again, that was my own issue. I've shot about 1,000 rounds through this rifle, and that was really the only thing that has happened so far. I've learned a lot about rifle setup since I started with the Iowa Sheriff's Office back in the day, and this is really a rifle that I would have liked to have on that SWAT team. It really kind of splits the difference between a rifle that can reach out on a flat range if you do have to take a longer shot, and something that can be used very effectively for CQB work, both with night vision goggles and without. So for me, this is a really kind of do-it-all rifle. The only thing this isn't going to be great for, in my opinion, is going to be like actual like mountain fighting, somewhere, you know, where you are remote shooting hilltop to hilltop. Obviously there's things I would do to this that I did not, because I want this for a little bit closer range stuff. Want to make a different rifle for something a little bit farther. If you guys have any questions, comments, I'm sure there's going to be snide remarks. Please leave them down below, and I will see you next week.